Good night. It's 11:45 in New York. I hope all is well with you today. I'm on now in this moment to share with you because I know I talk about critical lens essay a lot. And so I decided, you know what? Let me share with you the listening audience, so to speak. Those of you who may have students in high school who have to take the literary the essay, the English Regents. So I'm going to share some nice info with you. What I'm going to tell you is a tip, because a lot of my students got hundreds, and many went from 20s and 30s to 80s and 90s, because I had, like I mentioned before, I had students who got left back, right? They were repeaters of the 11th grade, I think twice. Yeah, about twice. They were repeaters. And their region scores were like in the 20s and 30s. And those kids went from the 20s and 30s to the 80s and 90s. And then I had other kids who were like gifted students, and most of them got hundreds on the English regions. So I'm going to share with you something that you could share with your students to help them to, achieve the highest of heights, and even 100 if they so desire. But this is just the critical lens essay. There are other aspects of the English regions. So what I'm going to suggest that you tell your students to, I'm going to go on the phone, I'm going to go on Google and look up some quotations, famous quotes, because they have a lot of quotes on the internet. They have a lot of things on the internet. All right. So, all right. So they're going to be given a quotation. All right. And they have to interpret the quotation. And after they have interpreted the quotation, they have to identify two works of literature which support their interpretation of the quotation. All right, so okay, so let me see. I'm gonna do like quotes by famous people. Um, Let me see. Just a minute. I'm trying to. Uh, okay. Uh-huh. Okay. Quotes by famous people. Okay, here's the first one on this list. This website is called blog.hubspot.com. So basically, I just Googled famous quotes. Okay, that's basically what I did. And I came up on a page here, blog.hubspot.com, and it has the 100 most famous quotes of all time by Meredith Hart. And this was published August 21st, 2023. Oh, this year. Mm. All right, so here is the first quote. Let me see, make sure it's the first quote. Okay, so this is the first quote that I came across, and there's so many different quotations on the internet, I'm sure, because I used to use them to help students. I used to use actual quotes from famous people to help the students to think and go through the steps with them. So this quote here is the greatest glory in living lies not in never failing, but in rising every time we fail. Nelson Mandela. Okay. The greatest glory in living lies not in never failing, but in rising every time we fail. Okay, so like, let's say they're doing this critical lens essay. They'll start off with something like this. According to Nelson Mandela, comma, the greatest glory in living lies not in never failing, comma, but in rising every time we fall. That's how they should start it off, according to Nelson Mandela. Write the quote. And after they have written the quote, they'll say, well, this quote means, and some students used to say, I think this quote means. But I think, basically just say this quote means that the best thing we can do for ourselves in life is to, if we fail in something, is to get up and do it again. So let's say that that's your interpretation. Like, don't let failure keep you down. Get up and start over again. You see what I'm saying? So you interpret the quotation in whatever way you want to interpret it. And then what you do is you find two works of literature which supports your interpretation of the quote. So let's say now you know of two works of literature where characters failed and they didn't let their failure stop them from, trying again. Now then, so these two works of literature, I'm sure there are so many works of literature out there that can be used where characters, when they failed, they didn't let failure stop them. They got up, dusted themselves, and kept trying anyhow. So let me see if I could even think of a work of literature that supports that interpretation. And then what you can do is, once you identify the works of literature, let's say yesterday I showed you guys how to use characterization. So characterization would be a perfect literary device to use for this particular, um, let's call this a critical lens statement, because that's what they call it, a critical lens statement. They don't say, oh, it's a quote. They call it a critical lens statement. So let's say now this particular critical lens statement showed up on the English Regents. What they then would do is they'll identify two works of literature that supports the interpretation of the critical lens statement. And again, like I mentioned, characterization would be the perfect literary device to use. Okay, characterization. So you would say, like, in blah blah blah, insert whatever work of literature. All right. In the novel, such and such and such and such, whatever the novel is, or you could say in the autobiography, blah 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 blah, the autobiography of Malcolm X, or whichever work of literature you want to use. If you want to say in the short story, blah 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 blah, this character, I'm going to create a character. This character, um, Maro, failed at what he was doing. He decided he wanted to play basketball, but he was very, very unsuccessful. When he tried to join the team, he kept failing, and the coach keeps telling him that, hey, you're not gonna make it on this basketball team, and blah blah blah. And so you kind of get my point, people. And so you would go on showing, like, even though he has experienced this with three different coaches, he never gave up trying to get on a basketball team. So he kept practicing and doing all these different things. And then eventually he said, I'm going to try again. And so he went to another, he went back again and he tried out again or whatever. And voila, he made it. All right. So the thing is, that particular instance that I'm giving you, that example I'm giving you, even though this person, Marlowe or whatever I call his name, even though he didn't succeed three times prior, he still kept on going. He still kept on, like, practicing and trying out till he got better. And then he went and he was accepted in the team. You see what I'm saying? So that would be characterization, because this character Marlon showed his determination, right? Because that would be a characteristic right there. He was determined to not let the prior failures interfere with what his dreams are. You see what I'm saying? So you could say that character could be described as being determined. Okay, you kind of get the point, guys? And then you could find other examples which showed his determination. Like, he used to wake up like 4 in the morning. He used to exercise to develop his whatever muscles. And then after whatever, he would be on the ball court practicing. He would go to the Y to practice. You know what I'm saying? So you would show examples that showed that he did not give up, even though he experienced failure like three times. Right? Okay, guys? And then now you think of another work of literature You may or may not use characterization for this one. Let's see what else you can use to support the fact that this person did not give up. They kept trying and trying anyway. Ah, okay. I'm trying to think of a good one that you could use. Motif, right? Motif mean a reoccurring idea, message, phrase, word, situation. All right, so motif can be used. So in this other work of literature, Gary, one of Gary's motif was never give up, never give up, never give up. That's something you see where I'm going with that? Because if you go back and you learn what motif is, it's a recurring idea. It could be a recurring statement, a recurring behavior, a recurring something that happened over and over again. So let's say Gary's motif is uh, this other work of literature. There's a character named Gary whose motif is never give up. So even though he experienced so much failure in certain things, whatever the thing is you're going to talk about, even though he experienced failure, he just what because of his motif, or he would just keep getting up and trying again. He would never give up. And interestingly enough, like remember I mentioned before that literary devices can intermingle, okay? But and however, you can use them in a way that makes sense. You can use literary devices in a way that makes sense, and then it will be accepted. And guess what? I have personally experienced, I've graded the essays at English Regents before, and it was a bunch of colleagues. We were sitting at the table grading these English Regents exams, and to be quite frank with you, some of the interpretations of the critical lens were a little off. But because the student or students were able to, they expressed themselves very well, they used the appropriate literary device to support their interpretation, they were given lots of points, even though the interpretation of the critical lens was not really altogether, accurate. They still passed the exam, and they didn't pass in a shabby way either. They did very, very well because they basically understood the task, even though their interpretation was not like all that, correct. All right, so I hope you're getting the point. So, so in the example supporting the interpretation of this critical lens by Nelson Mandela, I've given you two literary devices and showed you how to use them to support the interpretation. Okay, so if you just logged in, or I mean signed up, subscribed, or you just started listening, you want to go back and listen to prior literary devices that I went over with you, because there are others as well that you can use to support, as an example for your interpretation of the critical lens. That's what they will call it on the exam. But for the sake of your understanding here in this moment, these are quotes. This is a famous quote that I found on the website called blog.hubspot.com. And if you Google famous quotes or famous quotations or whatever, if you Google it, you should get a lot of quotes. And there's so many quotes out here. There's quotations about love and all these different things. So what I'm going to recommend to you, people out there, if I don't know if you're an adult, with your students, your young adults who are still in high school, whoever you are, I'm going to recommend, if your students have to take the English Regents in January, I believe that's when it is. I highly recommend that they start practicing with this, going on the internet, picking, you know, quotations from the internet, interpreting the quotations, and pretend that they're doing the actual regions, and write out, like, an essay. They don't have to do it like in a big, extended way. They could just, like, practice, do the steps, say according to, in this case, Nelson Mandela, and then you put the quote, and then you say this quote means blah blah, this quote means such and such. And then some students would say they agree with it or disagree with it. All right. That's another aspect of it. Some students say, oh, well, I agree with this quote. And then they would say a work of literature that supports this. So this would be the second paragraph. A work of literature that supports the critical lens is whatever the work of literature is. It could be a short story, a novel, a biography, an autobiography, something of that nature. So in the second paragraph, I'm just going to give you a simple thing, all right? And then you can elaborate as you go along. But I'm just giving you a small steps to help you to organize it. And then, you could branch off and it could become 5 paragraphs. But I'm just giving you some example. The second paragraph you should discuss the first literature work, the first work of literature. That would be in the second paragraph, right? And then in the third paragraph, you could discuss the other work of literature, and how it supports the critical lens. Okay. And then you could do what was that? I don't know. I heard something. But anyway. All right. But I recommend you do 5 paragraphs. Okay. And you could do 6 paragraphs. But the point I'm trying to make to you is that you discuss each work of literature in its own paragraph. All right, like the second paragraph, you discuss one work of literature, and then you might even discuss that same work of literature in the third paragraph. So you might give that one work of literature 2 paragraphs and the other work of literature 2 paragraphs. You see where I'm going with that? All right, so I think I have expressed enough here. I might do more quotations, but remember on the literary or the English regions, it will be called critical lens essay. All right. So remember my suggestion, and I had suggested to you too, because the English regions has different parts. One is the listening skills, if I recall correctly. I got to go and check because I know things sometimes change because the English regions evolved over the years, right? But I'm going to suggest to you, which I suggested before, but for the other essay that has to be written, the listening skills part, I did recommend to you, and I'm going to remind you that every day your students could practice listening to a news station or listening to whatever and just writing notes what you hear. And what that does, it will help you to when you hear it and you write down the notes, it will help you when it comes to like taking notes. Okay, so just write down what you're hearing people say in the news, or it doesn't have to be a news. It could be, I guess, a movie or something that you're looking at, a sitcom or whatever it is you're looking at. Just take notes while you're listening, and that's going to improve your listening skills. You understand? It will improve your listening skills and your note taking skills. And by the way, this skill is valuable in case you intend to go to college. Well, nowadays people record their professors, whatever is going on in the classroom anyway, but there might still be some people who like to take notes. I don't know, but I'm just sharing. That would be something that I had my students do when I was doing when I had the English Regions class. Had them listen to the news or whatever it is they listen to, like maybe 5 minutes spent listening and taking notes. And each day you could build up and, go like 10 minutes and the following day, 15 minutes the following day. You understand what I'm saying? So you take turns and you listen and you write and you take notes, okay? And that will take you a long way. It will improve your listening skills and it will improve your note taking skills. Okay. All right. So I'm going to hop off now, and it's been a pleasure. And I hope, what I'm sharing with you now is going to help you in the future. And, if you have your students who are taking the English regions and they've followed my advice to the T, to the letter, and they've done very well, 90s and even hundreds. I'd be very, very happy if you were to send me a note, or I'm still trying to learn the language on this YouTube thing here. Is it a DM or whatever it is? Let me know that your student did such and such because they listened to, the suggestions that I've made. And again, if there's any questions that you may have and you need help with, please let me know. I'm here to help, because like I mentioned to some of you, and I know there might be new people who will be listening to this. I thought of the students as my own, like they were my adopted children. Because my daughter died when she was like 13 months. And so, in her memory, I just wanted all my students to do well in life and achieve great success. So I really hope that, that you follow my advice and my suggestions, and you will do very well. But you have to follow my suggestions, okay? Don't forget, listen, get on the Google or whatever, get some quotes, and every day, or if not every day, because I know people may not really, but really it's not complicated. You could even just start off just practicing interpreting the um the quotations. You could just practice at first, and then identify two works of literature which supports the critical lens. You follow what I'm saying? Interpret the quotes, and identify two works of literature that support it. And then also you may want to identify the literary devices that you will use as an example. All those items there that I mentioned need to be written in the first paragraph of the essay. All right, the author of the quote itself, the interpretation of the quote, the two works of literature that you will be using, and the literary devices that you will be using. Those items should be in the introduction of your critical lens essay. All right, so I am done for tonight, and I hope all is well. I hope you're blessed, and don't forget to visit my store. Um, and I not all the time, but I usually forget to put my website. I usually forget to put it down, but I'm going to tell you, visit my website at www.jkfstyles.com and buy my merch, guys. Buy my merch, okay? It's beautiful, it's wonderful. You could give them as Christmas gifts. You could, or just buy them just to buy them because they're cool. And because why not buy them? They're good stuff. All right? Good stuff. All right? So www.jkfstyles.com, and hopefully I'll see you at my show, which is December 7th, 8th, and 9th at 409 Maple Street. But first, you have to purchase tickets on eventbrite.com, or you could go to Cash App, hashtag Destiny in the Ground, hashtag Destiny in the Ground. So you can get tickets from Eventbrite if you Google in Destiny in the Ground on Eventbrite. It should bring up my play, Destiny in the Ground on Eventbrite. You can purchase the tickets there, or you can go to hashtag Eventbrite. Oh, not my bad. Hashtag Destiny in the Ground. One word. Hashtag Destiny in the Ground, and that should be, my Cash App, and you can purchase tickets there as well. It's $65. Okay. And if you do show up and you learned about it from YouTube, don't forget to shout out YouTube in the house, because I'd love to say hello. All right. You have a blessed weekend and be good to yourself and your family. Bye.